Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to today's webinar on creating value from the field to the table through supply chain traceability. My name is Emily Brogan. I'm the marketing manager for Rovema North America. And before we get started, I do want to just go ahead and knock out some housekeeping notes. We are recording this webinar and we will send you the access link in a follow-up email tomorrow. Today's session is meant to be educational only, and it's not necessarily intended to provide specific technical solutions to issues, but of course, any of us are happy to discuss specific solutions in like one-on-one meetings following this discussion. And then lastly, please use the Q&A function. It'll be at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions that you have. We're going to get through as many as we can at the end of the meeting, but if we don't address your question, we will email you a response. So before we get started, I want to deploy a poll. And we're curious, so true, false, as a shopper, and you'll have to answer for yourself, I don't scan QR codes, and the info, it hasn't played a part in my buying decision or doesn't play a part in my buying decision. So as you answer the poll, I do have a couple of panelists with me today to introduce you to that are going to be helping us unpack our topic. First, I want to introduce Kevin Pekka. He is the sales manager with Azo. And then secondly, I'd want to introduce Samantha Gedden, the global sales director with Connecting Food. Thanks, you guys, for joining me today. I'm really excited about our topic. Kevin, do you want to go ahead and kick us off and tell us a bit of your background and introduce us to Azo and kind of where you guys fit into the supply chain?
Sure. Thank you very much, Emily, and I look forward to, I'm very honored to be able to sit on this panel and talk a little bit about Azo and how we can assist our customers in this effort. Azo is an ingredient handling company. We take raw ingredients into the different facilities. We unload them, we scale them, we store them, we deliver them to mixers or to processes, and then we can take that product after it's been worked and send that to packaging. And as a function, we also provide control systems to be able to monitor and record the data for the incoming ingredients all the way through to packaging. And as you heard from Emily, I'm the sales manager for Azo. I'm in the food group. There are 3 other groups associated with Azo. They are the Vital group, which handles the dairy products, confectionaries, and bakery and beverages. We have a chemical group that handles personal care and the chemical aspects of other products, as well as a plastics group or a poly group that handles compounding and PVC ingredients. Some of those other groups may also benefit from what we're going to present here today. I'm going to pass this back to you, Emily, and you can have Samantha explain who she is and what she does.
Well, I think you did a good handoff there. Samantha, do you want to go ahead and introduce us to Connecting Food and where you guys fit into the supply chain?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you today. I'm the Global Sales Director for Connecting Food, and I'm actually calling from Paris, France. So quite a ways away, but I'm originally from Minnesota. And prior to joining Connecting Food, I worked in different roles within the food industry for General Mills, Land O'Lakes, and I really spent a lot of my career working with farmers, both in North America and Europe and in Southeast Asia, and really just thought, gosh, if there was a way for the average consumer to see what I see on a daily basis and just see how hard people work, how hard farmers are, that, it's a 365-day job, your job, and they're just working so hard. And I really wanted to look at ways that we could help recreate that connection back to the farmers. And on the Connecting Food side, one of the ways that we do that is through blockchain. So we use blockchain to help supply chains address both the issues of internal traceability and external transparency. And our founders really came to Connecting Food with over 50 years of experience within the industry, having worked at different roles all along the supply chain. And their goal was really to be able to help leverage some of these new technologies to really bring more transparency to our food chains. Pretty early on, they realized that blockchain wasn't really a perfect technology. It's a really good tool, but blockchain won't tell you if your data that you're putting into it is actually good data. You know, it's kind of the garbage in, garbage out type of philosophy. And that led them to develop a bunch of other different smart modules that can be built on top of blockchain to really help the customers that we work with ensure that the supply chain data that they're sharing either with their retail partners or the end consumers is truly accurate. And I think the next slide really shows, kind of sums up pretty nicely what we do with this idea of an iceberg, where 95% of what we do, the consumer will never see. It's really all the hard work that's being done every day with people across the food chain, at the farmer level, the cooperatives, the manufacturers, the brands, you know, looking at how we can capture all that data. And then we can really help, you know, big brands like Nestle, like General Mills, like Regiant, really showcase everyone in the value chain to the consumers. They can kind of cherry pick little pieces of data that they can then highlight and answer the consumers' demands for transparency. So I think on the next slide, I've got a quick video that will just give you guys just a quick snapshot into what that looks like for the consumer. So for us, we use QR codes, and it really allows the consumer to do a deep dive into the product's supply chain and really see, you know, where did the ingredients start out, how were they produced, who produced them, does the data actually help show that the product claims being made by the brand are actually the truth? So that's a little bit into what we do. And then of course we can build in all kinds of things regarding farmer storytelling, supply chain information, environmental information. So just a really neat tool for communication with the consumer.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. It's an honor to be able to participate and moderate today's discussion and to represent Rovema North America. We are a packaging machinery supplier, and we specialize in vertical form, fill, and seal machinery, as well as filling, cartoning, case packing equipment. Rovema globally has been in business for about 65 years now. We support a pretty wide range of different product types, from coffee to pet foods to powdered baby formula to carbon black, and in that we also support a pretty wide variety or wide range of company sizes and their individual priorities as well. We've found that by prioritizing excellence in flexibility, integration, engineering, reliability, that we're really well equipped to succeed in providing these packaging solutions to such a wide variety of products, industries, and companies. So I've been with the company for about a year and a half now, and in learning not just about the technical capabilities of our equipment, but also having the opportunity to hear from our customers where their pain points are, what their own suppliers and their own customers and their retailers are demanding from them, being able to learn about and be on a discussion to address this supply chain digitization topic. It's just really fascinating to me. So I know we've all had a chance to introduce ourselves now, so let's just dive into the meat of today's topic around supply chain traceability and adding value to various parts of businesses. It's kind of cool that we are all together. We span such a wide variety of today's supply chain. I know that having the opportunity to learn from each other and what our different challenges are has been really valuable. And I know that today we just want to pinpoint and unpack kind of a handful of situations or opportunities that we see this digitization being a really powerful tool. So Samantha, I want to hand it off to you so that you can introduce and speak on our first topic.
Yeah, really happy to. I think as probably most of the people who are tuning in today know, there really is today a lot of data that exists out there in supply chains, but really the big challenge is that it's often siloed. So it might be existing in an ERP system like an SAP within the factory, it might be on Excel spreadsheets, let's say at the cooperative, or it might even be paper-based farm level. Really the big challenge is how do you bring all this data together and standardize it, digitize it, and make it easily linked together. So I think that's one of the big drivers for why the FDA has been working on FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act. It's really to help digitize our supply chains to both bring improved traceability and food safety as well to our food systems. And the FDA has really been vocal about pushing tech-enabled traceability systems, and in particular blockchain. I think they obviously recognize the security aspects of blockchain when it comes to secure data sharing, because obviously people, working in a food chain, they don't want their data to be available to just anybody, and so they want to be able to ensure they're maintaining governance of their data and that they're sharing it in a very secure way that can be accessible to general public or to possibly their competitors as well. So that is one of the advantages of blockchain. But as I was saying earlier, for us, blockchain is just one technology and it's not necessarily perfect. And so that's why there's ways of having it be coupled with other technologies to help kind of enhance its capabilities. And for us, that happens by digital auditing. So we have a certain number of algorithms that we can put into place that can analyze all the data that's coming in from the supply chain, that's coming in from the farm to the fork, all the way through. And that will really help us ensure that each step of the production process, the data is really accurate and that it matches up with what it's supposed to be. And I think that's really powerful because a lot of times audits today are occurring maybe 1 year, every 2 years, every 3 years. And people are having to make decisions on data that's outdated. And so being able to give people one visibility into entire supply chain data is really powerful for them, and also giving them data that they can use to make decisions in real time has been really neat, especially when you've got that visibility in the entire chain and not just in your particular scope. And I think that's really interesting, why we've got both you guys from AZO and Rovema around the table today, because your companies both play a really important role in the supply chain, and the equipment that you have in the different plants are really good sources of existing data and potentially new data that can be captured to really help link different steps in the supply chain together, and also hopefully identify opportunities for efficiencies and cost savings. And I know I spent a lot of time working in more of the tech side, but I also wanted to loop in Kevin as well, because he's usually spends a lot more time out in the field than I do. So it'd be great, Kevin, if you can share, what you're seeing and how your customers are handling all these new demands for traceability data and FSMA in particular.
Sure. Thank you very much, Samantha. The next slide, please, Emily. All right. What I'm seeing on the plant floor are two different areas. One is how we handle data, and the other is how we handle the ingredients themselves. As Samantha was saying, there's a lot of data out there, and with FSMA, a lot of our plants are still doing the manual lot number, lot tracking, batch tracking of ingredients, so that should there be a recall, they can find that, but it's really cumbersome. So today's new control systems, we can track and trace the lot number in and out of the plant. We manage that operation through a very strict rule set. We can prevent the overfilling of the storage vessels. We can track the ingredient lot number movements through a first in, first out operation. We can overlap the lots at the transition. So as one ingredient is about to be empty, we can include 2 lot numbers to cover that transition. And then we can also reject outdated ingredients should their potency be diminished, or if the shelf life expires on that ingredient. Some do. Now, as far as the ingredient handling itself, we try to implement safeguards to those ingredients. And this is something that has been increased and becoming a little more important today through a lot of our customers. We sift to remove any oversized or unwanted material. We use magnets for removing metal, should there be any in the product. We design the equipment for first in, first out, and laminar flow. We use proper techniques also for ingredient transfer, such as using dilute phase to transport some raw ingredients. We use dense phase for transporting blends so that we don't separate the products we just blended. We use long sweep elbows to minimize crystalline breakage. We use all different kinds of techniques and equipment that can be used to protect our ingredients once they're in the plant. So now we have both the ingredient handling side that's safe, we have all the data records that are available, and now we can couple that with the product like Connecting Foods offers that can now connect all of the raw ingredients that were brought in to now the finished goods to the customer. So now, Emily, I'd like to send it over to you for discussion about packaging.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. You know, outside of work, as consumers ourselves, and this kind of goes back to the poll. Each of us, we interact with such a wide variety of different product types, whether it's impulse buy in the candy aisle, if you're reaching for something that your grandparents always kept around in a candy dish, or even a parent that is scouring over every single ingredient listed on a jar of baby food. So what we're talking about today, it really goes so far beyond what we think of when we first started scanning QR codes 10 years ago. I know it's a little bit different now. Some of us are scanning QR codes on restaurant tables so that we can be, contactless menu reading. But customers, they're demanding even greater transparency, almost equating it to shopping for food products in a farmer's market. They want to know the whole story of where a product came from, just as if they're buying it directly from a farmer themselves. So, Rovema, we think of all of this from putting ourselves in our own customers' shoes and thinking of their products on store shelves, where their customers want to know, how do I know if this product is fair trade certified, or how do I know if there was a potential recall that the product I have sitting in my pantry, I know that it wasn't affected by a recall just by scanning or typing in a batch number. So we're entering kind of a exciting day and age that leveraging data points reliably, efficiently, automatically, it's really leading to suppliers, producers, retailers all being able to meet these customer demands for transparency and interaction. We're being able to do all of those things so much more efficiently when we look towards where the future is headed. Samantha, I did want to get your question or your input on a question I had. I tend to think of, the benefits to consumers and how they specifically interact with packaging and with products, but how is supply chain digitization, how is it impacting retailers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say it kind of impacts them, I think, in two primary ways. I'd say first, because they're the ones who are really at the very end of a food chain. And so they're the ones who are kind of, in direct contact with consumers, and they're the ones the consumers get angry at if there is some kind of recall. They're the first ones, they don't go back to the brand or anyone else. It's the fault of the retailers. So in a sense, allowing them to have more traceability hopefully does help them identify in real time supply chain issues before we get to the recall stage. But then also having that visibility, if a recall does need to occur, they can recall product much more quickly and much more efficiently and get it off that shelf, identify exactly where that product went throughout the chain, which stores it ended up in, and then, yeah, like I said, get it off the shelf so that consumers hopefully aren't purchasing it and bringing it home. And then secondly, I think, like you were saying, all of us are used to picking up our smartphones and verifying for ourselves. And so for me, this idea of QR codes and transparency is just one more extension of that, in the sense that, consumers really do want to verify and be sure that what a brand is telling them is the truth, because there's, we've all seen all kinds of food scandals where something is supposed to be organic and then it turns out that it's not really organic. And so people have kind of entered this new phase where they're not necessarily trusting brands, and they want to be able to verify for themselves that what a brand is telling them is the case when it comes to things like product claims and particularly a local sourcing, which has just been a huge there's been a huge jump in that since COVID, and people really wanting to buy local. And so they're looking to really check for themselves that what they're buying is in line with their value and that they're getting what they're paying for. And so, of course, these kinds of new tools really provide a new way for retailers and for brands as well to communicate with consumers, to help bring data right into their hands so that they can actually check themselves and then feel purchasing.
For sure. Yeah, Kevin, I was thinking, on your side too, in addition to, some of the stuff that you'd already gone into, as far as all the checks and balances, what other opportunities are you seeing from the processing and material handling perspective?
What we've seen over the last number of years is a change. I would say in the last 20 years, especially, food material of construction has changed from carbon steel, which was very common, to only stainless steel today. We're seeing a lot more emphasis on sanitation, the ability to disassemble and clean and test. There's a lot more movement to design systems to handle allergens better. We have systems for segregating non-GMO and GMO products. So our customers are becoming a lot more aware of how the ingredients interact with one another, and how to better uh, put the right ingredients and the right materials of construction and the right designs of systems together so that they can provide to the end user, the customer, the best possible product that they can have when they receive it and pick it up off the shelf.
For sure. That's probably a good segue for our next
Actually,
scenario.
I had
Yeah,
one quick
Samantha.
question for you, actually, Emily, because I was really curious, when we're talking about packaging, we've seen so many different claims regarding sustainability and sustainable packaging, recyclable packaging. And so I was wondering how that was impacting the work that you guys are doing. Have you had to adapt your equipment to these new trends? Do you see your customers asking for new types of innovations?
For sure. And so much of what we're hearing from our own customers, is really coming from the retailers and from the consumers themselves, just like the demand for supply chain visibility, and increased transparency. Um, it's kind of cool. We have tried to be intentional with the webinars that we participate in, that it's not just people that are in our same lane, that we try to pull in experts from lots of other business categories that we touch. And in a previous webinar that we had around sustainable films, it was really cool. The people that we were participating with, they said that just in the last 2 years, that the film industry has seen more progress as far as sustainable film materials, as far as like paper films, monomaterial, high barrier property films. The increase in funding and innovation and even like use in the market, that the last 2 years have just taken off. So it's a really exciting time for producers and brands to begin thinking about sustainable films, in a way that's feasible, and feels attainable. Now, of course, like any sort of film change or any sort of spec change, there are challenges. A lot of these films, making sure that things like the coefficient of friction is correct, and fits the specs needed to run it on a VFFS machine or even an HFFS machine, because those two packaging tactics, they have very different film needs. So making sure that things like that are really dialed in, because if your sustainable film, it doesn't run well and you end up with a whole bunch of product wastage and a whole bunch of film wastage, then I mean you can throw that sustainability initiative out the window. And because really preserving products and being a good steward of all of the inputs, that's the first priority. So because these sustainable films, they're expensive. They are as demand begins to increase, and it's going to increase because retailers are making requirement claims for 2023, 2025. So the demand will become elevated, so supply will become elevated and prices will begin to go down. But making sure that you have equipment that can handle the film well and can use the film efficiently and make sure that things like seal integrity are not going to be a concern. That's really going to be key to having a successful sustainable film changeover project, in my opinion. Um, so, Kevin, on the lot tracing and lot isolation that you were starting to get into, I know you wanted to take a deeper dive, and I'll go ahead and give you this next slide if you want to kind of introduce us to this next scenario.
Sure. Thank you. In any production facility, there are times when the product, through multiple reasons, might require a recall. And if you don't handle your data well, if you have an electronic data system versus a manual data system, you can still find the data most of the time if you entered the data correctly into the system. If you're handling it all on paper and you need to do a recall, it might take a long time. If it's all electronic, searching for a particular lot that was needing to be recalled will address which batches that affects quicker. The amount of granularity of that data can assist you even faster to try to locate or find a problem should there be one. And the likelihood of an occurrence or the severity of that can be addressed and obtained, because nobody wants to do a recall for too much material. They want to try to narrow it down to that of which needs to be recalled. And through automated record keeping, we can look at both upstream and downstream tracing for how that ingredient has been handled from the field all the way into the plant, and then through the plant, as well as providing that data for the consumer to be able to look at the entire stream to know what's happened with that ingredient or that finished goods, if you will. So, yeah, we want to make sure that should there be a need for a recall, that we have the fastest and easiest way to identify where those ingredients were used, as well as to limit the number of batches that you're going to have to do a recall on, because that can represent a large amount of income to a customer, to a manufacturer. So I think it's important that we definitely look at automating and making the records electronic, rather than just taking the label from the bag and stapling it onto a piece of paper and trying to hope that should there be a recall, you can find that information fast.
I think that's really, really fascinating. I know, as I mentioned, I spent most of my time working with farmers, and I think, since joining Connecting Food and working with our customers, and also in my exchanges with both of you as well, the more I learn about the manufacturing side of things, the more I'm just really impressed with how much work is being done to really ensure clean and safe ingredients at the plant level as well. I think, as we all know, food chains, they're big, they're global, there's data all over the place. And, we often talk about farm to fork traceability, but really, there's also the question of, let's say even at a plant level, there's multiple machines, multiple types of equipment within the same plant. And so it's looking about, just to have plant traceability that can require interconnecting lots of different types of machinery. And then how do you go about connecting that with the information that came further up the stream from the farmers, from the cooperatives, from the ingredient suppliers, and then how do you continue tracing that down the supply chain? So our idea is, really focusing on how can we easily bring that data together into one place, trying to take the data then that's in the format that exists today so that we can kind of work on the standardization side on our side. So trying to really limit the amount of rework that needs to be done on the customer side, and trying to really facilitate as much as we can this digitization process so that data can truly be digitally linked together all across the supply chain. And as I think I mentioned earlier, that means that, once you've got that data together all in one place and you have that visibility, then you can look at starting to apply digital audits at different points in the supply chain for things like safety, quality controls, any kind of certificates, audits, promises. All of these things are types of digital audits that we can implement to really help hopefully avoid product recalls down the road. But then knowing that if they do occur, you've got that traceability with the click of a button, and you can see on your screen, where that product went and really where it moved from. Yeah, really the idea is just looking at how to put the data together in a simple way and leverage it both internally and then externally for the consumer as well.
For sure. So speaking of, those different examples, Samantha, can you dive into this use case? I know that you were really excited about this project that just launched.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We just had a new project go live in the US, and for me, it's super cool because I grew up on a wheat farm in northern Minnesota. My dad was a farmer, and so for me, this project kind of hit home in that sense, where I'm super proud to be working with the cooperative and tracing wheat, and of course for a really great brand like Triscuit, which has such a nice story to tell. Their goal with this project was really looking at how they can, one, respond to the growing consumer demands for transparency, as we were stating, trying to provide the types of information that the younger generations, like famous millennials and whatnot, are looking for, and really put the focus on the fact that it's actually a healthy product. It only has 3 ingredients. They've got a really nice story to tell around the farmers they really support in implementing more regenerative agricultural practices. There's local sourcing with the wheat being sourced not very far from the co-op, and the co-op not being very far from the plant. So there's a really nice low carbon footprint for this product. And the initial goal with this product was really to focus more on the consumer side, to really tell that story. But what's really neat is that through improved data sharing and through being able to bring all that supply chain data together in one place, we were actually able to identify opportunities for efficiencies as well on the plant level. And the cool thing is that we actually had data that we could use to help support the plant in their requests for upgrades, and have it really be a data-focused approach to looking at their supply chain and what they could do to help improve it. So it's really neat story, and the Triscuits are actually available in store now nationwide. So if you guys are happen to be shopping, I'd encourage you to give the QR code a scan and check it out. Check out the Wheat's journey.
Got some homework. Well, thanks for breaking those down. So the last scenario that we're going to walk through is around using data to increase efficiency and reduce waste in terms of like the processing and packaging and other production, activities that need to happen in the plant. As ingredient prices continue to go up, labor costs go up, freight costs go up. making sure that you're maximizing your resources and driving out your inefficiencies, it's really going to continue to be necessary to be competitive. And that sounds it sounds scary, I know, but right now the climate, the way that ingredients and labor and all of those different inputs are headed, I know that that is such a huge concern for many businesses out there, regardless of if you're in the States or you're in Europe, like Samantha. So, overall equipment efficiency discussions around monitoring and automation to really refine production processes. Just in our own experiences, these conversations have really become top of mind in the last few years, just in what we've heard from our own customers. So as customers and companies begin to look at OEE and performance data in the same way that they think of lot tracing and monitoring products as they flow through the supply chain, Kevin, you kind of alluded to it. Well, it might not have been even much an illusion, but we often hear concerns around the security of the data themselves. So the security that's added by these database techniques like blockchain, and I'm not a blockchain expert. This is just what I've learned from you, Samantha. It sounds like these database techniques, they potentially are a feasible way to address these concerns while giving facilities the tools to do things like monitor changeover times, monitor run rates, product loss, all of those different OEE factors. So Samantha, when we discussed the topic, you mentioned that the challenge can be when machines aren't online or when they capture little to no performance data. I'm only speaking from Rovema's perspective, but we have machines in operation that are 20, 30, 40. I know of a specific machine that's over 50 years old, and that bad boy is like a Nokia cell phone. I mean, you can't you aside from running it over with a vehicle, I mean, it just keeps on ticking. So we have several generations now. We're several generations further along in terms of IoT. So the capabilities are just not there when it comes to connection and integration when you're dealing with these older kind of amalgamation of different plant machine components and older models and older systems and stuff. So, and I know that Samantha, you also mentioned that these traceability systems, they don't create the data. They have to aggregate, they have to be able to aggregate and standardize the data that's already being siloed somewhere in the plant. So, that being said, the alternatively, if the plant has lines that are collecting performance data, having a centralized system that can be interfaced with, that would make it very easy to build in the same digital audits that can do things like tracking the inconsistencies by shift, tracking product loss, different things like that. So, Samantha, what are your overall thoughts on the kind of the factories of the future and the future of product digitization and automation?
Yeah, I think it's easy for people to get overwhelmed when they start to think about these digitization aspects of business, because they kind of know where they are today and they see where they'd like to be, and a lot of times there's a really big gap in between them. So they kind of get overwhelmed by the big picture and just kind of get analysis paralysis. Is that what we say? And so the idea is, we're just trying to say it's better to take baby steps. It's better to start somewhere, start small, and start looking at what data you have today, what format is it in, how can we capture that data? As you do take steps in the future, upgrading equipment, bringing additional machines online, we start integrating that data in. But you don't need to wait until your factory or your plant is 100% digitized or your supply chain is 100% digitized. You can already start working with what you have today And then that helps you prepare for the future, especially for, now we're looking at with FSMA traceability for fruits and vegetables, but pretty soon that's going to be extended to other food chains as well. So now's the time to start taking those steps, those baby steps to prepare and be better positioned further on down the road for traceability and getting rid of some of those data sets.
For sure. So really, that's what we had from like I guess the prepared segment of today's presentation. Just to kind of bookend the segment, I do want to leave you with some key takeaways around supply chain data and traceability. The first is that, food safety, it continues to be a priority to customers, especially in the last 18 months. Along with the COVID-19 disruptions, ingredient prices continue to rise as higher demand is now met with a reduced supply of many inputs. The third is that data tracing is a continuum, and it's feasible and attainable with a solution that's appropriate for your business. Again, don't get analysis paralysis, as you'd say. It's all about taking baby steps. The fourth is that data tracing or data audits, and particularly data audit automation. Wow, say that 5 times fast. Audit automation is a powerful tool, and when it comes to having tools that can make you from when you're trying to sell into a retailer or you're a retailer themselves, having different systems like this can often be a strong safety net in times of disruption, and retailers, they know that, and they are choosing, they may be choosing companies that have systems like this in place that are automated. The sixth is that successful businesses are often the ones that are continuously solving for their buyers' needs, even if the customer doesn't know that the need exists. And then the last one is that you can prepare for and prevent crisis in parallel with creating value and elevating your brand for your customers. So Samantha and Kevin, did you have any other final takeaways that you wanted to throw out?
Samantha?
Okay, I'll go first then. Yeah, I guess maybe that last point I think is really, really powerful because, traceability legislation and the new rules aren't going to go away. They're going to keep coming. They're going to keep getting stricter. And I think it's there's kind of a short window for those who are being more proactive in their approach and starting to not wait until it's mandatory, but taking those steps today, because those are the folks who are going to be able to set their own terms when it comes to contracts with their customers, and hopefully be able to negotiate better terms to create value, with that new data they've been able to capture. Whereas for those who are kind of sitting back and waiting, when traceability does become mandatory for all food chains, that's just going to be another line that's going to be added into their contracts, and they're not going to be able to generate any value with it. It's just going to create more work for them with no extra value in return. So that's kind of my message is, now's the time to really start thinking about it, thinking about what you can do, what are the steps that you can take to position yourself and hopefully help your company stand out from competitors as well by being more proactive. And that's certainly something we've seen so far with our existing customers who have adopted these new tech-enabled traceability solutions.
Well, Samantha, that just reminds me, you sent me the information around the FDA's new challenge. They have that. What's the initiative's name? It's like the new era of smarter food safety, where they have a contest for trying to encourage tech companies to come up with these traceability systems. And the FDA, they in the last several years, I know producers are still working through the NLEA requirements, the new labeling and nutrition facts requirements. They're working on the bioengineered stamp right now. So I'm sure with all the challenges around food safety that we've navigated in the last year and a half, that, you know, the FDA is going to get serious about audit, whatever that word is.
Automation.
Yes, automation. So, I mean, you're right. The window, it could be short for companies to take advantage of getting that additional visibility in front of their customers.
And I do
Definitely.
think that the automation portion provides the biggest bang for the buck when it comes to taking some of the inaccuracies from hand typing lot number and batch numbers in to doing that in a more automated way and preparing the proper data sets that are necessary for being able to link to some uh, connections like connecting food to be able to tie everything together.
For sure. Okie dokie. Well, do we want to dive into some questions? I know we saved about 13, 14 minutes to jump into some of these. So let me get that opened up. So the first question that I had pop up, so the first question that we had is, are suppliers upstream, so farmers, other manufacturers, talking about supply chain data, or is all the buzz just with retailers?
Maybe I'll let Kevin give his input on the plant level first, and then I'll my thoughts as well.
Okay, we're seeing more and more customers that are choosing to automate to a greater detail, to a greater level. The Internet of Things and the automation possibilities exist in such a larger capacity than they did years ago that it's helping not only with making the systems run more efficiently, but it provides them with hooks so that they can do more of preventative maintenance and that sort of thing prior to a piece of equipment failing. One of the things I'm hearing a lot from customers that helps prevent a lot of rework is consistency. We always get asked to do highly accurate weighments, but sometimes it's how consistent is the finished goods when it hits the equipment downstream of the weighing and mixing equipment. If it's consistent, then everything runs smoother. There's less rework and that sort of thing. So um, we are seeing people doing more automation. We're seeing a lot more people doing automated automation in terms of the record keeping. We're also seeing more and more people putting it on their ERP systems, which puts the proper um, data in the right spot for systems like connecting foods to be able to tie in upstream and downstream data requirements. Samantha,
Yeah,
what are you
certainly.
finding?
Yeah, I was going to say, certainly, as those different ERP systems do start getting put in place, it does facilitate the data collection. And I know on our side, especially in the US, we've got, the Walmarts who have been really strong proponents of blockchain. They've been trying for several years now to actually get more and more suppliers on board on their blockchain. And I think one of the reasons that it's been relatively slow is that some of the older blockchain solutions are blockchain solutions that aren't designed specifically for the food industry. They're more generalized blockchain applications that can be used for multiple industries, for clothing, for logistics, for food, for whatnot. And so the idea that now today there's applications that are directed for the agri-food business that are designed to handle the types of data that we I think has really been facilitating more and more people further up the food chain coming on board, because it means that there's less work for them in implementing these solutions. They're more designed to interact with their systems and fit more their needs. So as the solutions kind of advance in technology, and as there's ones that are driven more by people with the specific knowledge of the food industry, in our case, it is starting to move further up the chain. But also it probably depends as well on the type of the food chain, because certain food chains have stricter regulations today than others, and so those are the ones who are kind of the early adopters of technology.
Cool. So another question that we had, and this, I'm not sure which one that between Kevin and Samantha, which one this will fit. But second question is, to what extent will a manufacturing site have to open up their databases to utilize this data?
Oh, that's a good question. I can start out with it. So it is a question that comes up a lot because people get nervous when it comes to sharing data. You know, they want to make sure that they're going to actually maintain control of their data, and I think that is one of the advantages of, let's say, a distributed ledger like blockchain, because it allows people to kind of control who accesses which portions of their data. So we're collecting data into one centralized platform, but that person remains the owner of that data, and then they can selectively control. I don't know, it's kind of like your Facebook profile, where you can choose, you know, which people can access your pictures, which people can access certain parts of your profile. The same thing can also apply to blockchain, where you can selectively apply or selectively give access to parts of your data that might be mandatory. You know, if you're the brand, the manufacturer is asking for certain information from the cooperative, they can then choose to release or give visibility into those particular data sets, but not their entire database that they've been collecting from the food chain or from their plant or from their particular facility.
Okay. And then the last question that I have, I guess this is like a final warning to anyone else that wants to slide one in, but one last question that we had is, how do you strike a balance between being on the cutting edge and, I guess, in terms of using these supply chain traceability systems, being on the cutting edge and being the guinea pig for these systems?
Well, I can start this one out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Some of this is not cutting edge anymore. I mean, we've been doing tracking and tracing, and it's been out there for a number of years. So the fact that we have different islands of automation with data being transferred all along, now all we're saying is we're tying some of those together. And so really it's sewing together different pieces that have always been there, and now we're making it a more uniform feature across the platform, all the way from the field all the way to the consumer.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Kevin.
My point of view would be just to maybe, like, again, take baby steps, try it out, maybe apply it to one particular plant, one particular supply chain, and really just explore kind of locally where the benefits are for your company, because the benefits are different for everyone. You know, there are the more B2C consumer side of things, there's the more B2B kind of things, there's traceability, there's quality control, so there's different benefits, but it doesn't need to be something that's a blanket rollout across all of your production facilities, all of your, you know, your entire company. You can start out with it in sort of a small scale, and then really use that test and learn experience, let's say, to really evaluate the benefits before you look at maybe a bigger implementation.
Awesome. Well, thanks for all of the great questions. I think that is going to wrap our presentation today. Samantha, Kevin, thank you so much for hopping on today's call and being able to give us really some awesome insights from both of y'all's different perspectives on today's supply chain. I do want to personally thank all of our attendees for listening in on today's webinar. I hope that everybody has a safe and productive week, and we will see you on our next webinar.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks again, Samantha.
Bye, everyone.